Hey everybody, I'm Sarah, the Real Simple Mama. Here are my girls, getting nice and cool. And so, to cut right to it, I'm going to talk today about another method that you can use to help keep your chickens cool when the weather is hot. And specifically, we're going to talk about misters today. Are they a good idea? Are they a bad idea? And just some precautions. I'm in South Texas, for those of you who don't know, and it's the beginning of June, like the first half of June, and we've already had days that are almost 100 degrees. We're not too bad right now. We've just hit 90 for today. We've got a cold front in this week, so we're only in the 80s and 90s this week. But there have already been some people in the area whose chickens have died, and it's normal Texas chicken breeds. It's like Americanas, Easter eggers, olive eggers, breeds that are very common in this area. And so we've busted out the mister. And so I want to give you guys just some ideas, some things to think about. And to, I guess, spoiler alert, I think misters are a great idea. I would definitely recommend it, but you can't just put it up all day and turn it on and just think that everything's great. So I'm going to give you just some things to think about. Again, all the content that I do, I try to just tell you, hey, this is my experience. This is what I've learned from research. These are things that you might want to consider. And then, of course, based on your situation, how many birds you've got, your coop design, all that stuff, you can decide if it's right for you. So I did not get this product for free or anything like that. I'm not really hyping a specific mister. But if you care, this is the one that I've got. It's by Misty Mate, and it's advanced mist technology, which is like, So you normally would find something like this with like outdoor stuff, patio furniture, that kind of thing. So obviously it's not specific for chickens. But this is how we've got it set up now. Most misters, the only variation is going to be the length of the hose. And it just hooks up to a regular hose. Of course, you can use an outdoor timer and that kind of stuff if you want to, but it's not going to be, that doesn't come with the mister itself. That's a separate piece. What I like about this mister is that the nozzles are every couple of feet and you can rotate them. And of course, my husband has set it up so I can't reach them, but here's one. So on here, I can spin this guy all the way around. Of course, not right now because I'm on video, but they can be spun all the way around so they can face any direction. And it just provides constant mist, and it's basically just an on-off type thing. So this is not like a super programmable, Misty Mate, but this is not super advanced technology. It's just a hose with holes in it basically. But you can see, if there's no breeze, and it'll kind of go in all directions. Obviously, if there's breeze, it'll go in a few different directions. So here are the precautions, because I'm already like, oh my gosh, I cannot lose a bird this summer. Like, I will just be absolutely devastated. Those of you who have followed for a while, I've had chickens for over 2 years, and I've lost a total of 2 birds, which, that's 2 lives, but it's also a lot because I've only ever had 5 or 6 chickens. And I believe both of them who I have lost, they both passed away due to being too hot. I do have other videos I'll reference really quick. I have one I just recently did about chickens being obese, chickens getting too fat, because that's a bad problem for their health in general, for their egg laying productivity in general, but also because it'll make them a lot more sensitive to heat, and it makes it easier for the heat to kill them, basically. I also have other videos about just ideas to keep your chickens cool in the summer. So this is certainly not like, just do the mister and then you're good. There are lots of other different things. I'll touch on those, but this is not that video. This is more just talking about the mister. The other things that you can do, and I left it out here, and I'm all about, really cheap methods that are just functional. They may not look really pretty, but they're inexpensive and they get the job done. So we use, those bowls are from the dollar store, and those are my crap bowls. Like, they're only used for chickens. They live in the garage. And I have a deep freezer in the garage, and there's a shelf that's only for chicken water bottles, and I give them ice water bottles. So these are the ones that are now melted from yesterday, and the new ice is in there. So definitely when it gets hot, you want to give ice for your chickens. You can give them kiddie pools, which we have bought a kiddie pool that we're going to give them here once their run is opened. So the mister is definitely a great idea, but one of the things to be aware of is don't just do the mister and think that you've done your job. I also feel like, and I've done other posts about this and other videos, you need to make sure that your coop is extremely well ventilated. Not just because they poop and then it smells and there's the ammonia and it decomposes and all of that stuff, but just because you need to get the hot air out of there. The hot air that their bodies create, the hot air that's just sitting, and heat rises. So you need to have ventilation, up at the top, whether you've got a coop kit or whatever the situation is. I've got this vent open, and as you can see through, I've got the other big vent open. That's right by their roosts. They sleep in there. So that's all open. The other things to be careful of with misters, and this is what's made me nervous. I'll say also before I go any further, disclaimer, this is not the permanent home of this mister. It's just where it is right now. So where would you put a mister? When would you want to use it? I would not use it for more than like 30 to 40 minutes at a time, maybe an hour max. So either you need to be home and set an alarm like on your phone or your watch or something, or you need to put the hose on a timer, because too much water can be a bad thing. We did not build this coop, and it has been here for a long time. We are going to reseal the wood, but obviously I don't want this wood getting wet. You don't want their ground or of course their shavings or anything like that to get wet, because then we're dealing with mold and rotting materials. But also your chickens are usually, every once in a while there's a weirdo, but your chickens are usually not going to enjoy getting wet, whether it's standing out in the rain or whether it's just their feathers getting wet. Now, most of their feathers, if you've got a quote-unquote normal chicken that's not a frizzle and it's not a silky, if it's a full-grown chicken that has all their feathers are waterproof. Everything except for the little fluff, like the down that's, you know, down on their vents and on their underbelly and around like their hips. All the feathers on the top, those big smooth feathers, they are waterproof. So it's not that your chicken's going to be getting soaking wet. They just don't really like being in water. They're like, you know, they're like cats and other animals. They just don't like getting wet. So the goal is not that you're really wetting the chicken. The goal is that you are giving them an environment that is now cooled down because it's wet. And they will come and dig around. They will dust bathe in the wet ground to cool down that way. The fastest way to cool a chicken is to either get them to drink cold water or to get their feet wet and their feet cool, because that's the quickest way to get to their bloodstream. Sort of like our pulse points, you know, those spots where your blood vessels are visible, like on the inside of your wrists. That's what it is for chickens. It's their feet. So my goal here is, yeah, I mean, it'll decrease the temperature in the coop a little bit, but that's really going to be done more by ventilation, right? The goal is that I'm just cooling down the inside of there, and really I'm making the ground wet, because you can see now most of the ground has gotten darker. You can see under the food it's still light. I know the phone is not focusing real well. And inside their official dust bath, it's still light. But I mean, I'm getting soaked here. I know you guys are in the midst of the mist, but I'm not going to keep it on any longer. I turned it on right before I started this video, and I'm going to shut it off in a minute, because as you can see, but my chickens don't really like it. They're kind of like, what is this? So they're hiding out until I shut this thing off. All right, so I just shut off the mister. Now we're gonna let the chickens come out. Come on, girls. Chick, 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 chick. Come on. Come on. In chicken psychology, the alpha's gonna come out first. Right, because she's checking out the scene for her flock and making sure that it's safe. Now, they will dig around in it. They will dust bathe in it. They will roll around in it, because that ground is quickly cooling their feet and cooling their body. So let's talk about, where would I put a mister? What do I need to think about? You know, these things are super, I mean, we just draped it over existing structures, because you know how I am. I'm all about being cheap and being efficient. Really, let me tell you and show you where we are going to have this mister live. And the chicken run is almost done. And here's their grazing box over here that has all kinds of stuff. There's wheatgrass, and then there's just other random grasses and weeds growing through. We are going to drape it in those bushes and across from the fence to the awning of their coop, and then over here so it also waters my grazing box at the same time. So this will be like a nice little, this area is always shaded because it's got so much stuff here. I apologize for the plane. So when the chickens have their run, they get this space here all the way to the end of the coop, to the end of the cinder blocks. So this is always going to be shaded, and then it's also going to have the mist on it, but then we're going to have the mister go at such an angle that it also waters my grazing box. So it's knocking out a couple of birds with one stone, but don't tell the chickens that I said that. So a couple of other things to keep in mind. You know, you want to think about what direction the wind might be blowing. You want to watch out for wood and make sure your wood is sealed. Honestly, any wood for your coop is supposed to be resealed once a year. This one, you know, we have to do some repair work on the door and work on some other stuff, but we do need to reseal it just to be safe. And if your chickens have grass or plants around, I mean, move the mister around for sure. The other thing to be aware of is you can't let it get, like I already mentioned, the bedding. I already mentioned the bedding, like, you know, their pine bedding, or if you've got PDZ, which I recommend using, you don't want that to get wet. But the other thing that can't get wet is their food. You can't let their food get wet. It will mold, and a chicken hopefully would know to not eat moldy food, but if they eat it, then that can be fatal. So now they're out, they're relaxing. the temperature has dropped a couple of degrees just from that cool water being there. So in a sense, it's not even about the mister being on constantly, it's just about getting the ground wet. So what I plan on doing is, we're normally home in the afternoons, we run our errands in the morning and then we're back in the afternoon. So my goal is to run it on the hottest days, probably 3 separate times, but like on for 30 minutes, off for an hour. On for 30 minutes, off for an hour. But I mean, really, you just need to go and see like whatever ground your chickens are on. As long as it's wet, like I can tell that this is dark colored, so I can tell that it's wet. So once the ground is wet, then I'll turn it back on again. But it's not a matter of you need to keep it running all afternoon. And that's a mistake that I made a year ago. You don't want to have water damage on the side of your coop or on any other structure. I mean, I know technically the wood that's outside is supposed to be okay, like your fence. You know, if you have a shed, things like that. Yeah, it's supposed to be weatherproof and it's supposed to be, you know, prepared for being out in the rain and stuff. But you don't want to make the wood warp or deal with other kinds of problems. I would just be hesitant about, oh, it's hot, so I'm going to go turn on the mister for 4 hours. Because if the chickens aren't going out in it, like my girls, if I left the mister on for 2 hours, they would have just hidden out over there because they don't want to come out in it. So that wouldn't be benefiting them. Right, girls? So just a quick little thing to think about as we're getting into heat. The heat is going to be really bad this year, I can already tell. There's already chickens dying from heat. You know, they're up in the coop all night and the person goes to open up the coop in the morning and a chicken has fallen off the roost dead in the night or in the early morning because it's just so hot. So we've got extra ventilation. But, you know, in addition to a lot of the other stuff that we've got, I know Addie in the comments has mentioned she's bought solar powered fans and other fans like from Home Depot, from Amazon, things like that. You know, we do ice bottles. I'm going to get a kiddie pool. I read a tip online where you get the kiddie pool and you put cool water in it, not deep, because remember, your goal is you just need to get them to get their feet wet. So just a couple of inches deep. Also, chickens are stupid and sometimes they'll drown. Even in just a couple of inches of water, it's happened. But the other thing you can do is to try to motivate them to get in there. You can put some of their treats, whether it's fly grubs or mealworms or maybe something that sinks, like black sunflower seeds, and throw it in the pool. Because like I said, most chickens won't voluntarily go to like a big body of water, a pool, or get wet, you know, unnecessarily or something like that. But if you throw the treats in there, make them get in the pool and be standing in the kiddie pool, and then while they're standing in there, number one, they're drinking water as they're basically bobbing for sunflower seeds, right? But also their feet are getting cool. So again, I'll just say, like, I'm so worried about people's chickens dying, you know, with global warming and summers getting hotter and crazier and more intense. You know, here in South Texas, we deal with hot summers until October, November. Like, you know, that's really when it starts to cool down. And for me, you know, again, you can watch your chickens once they start panting, then you need to do something. The faster they're panting, the worse it is. If they just look like their mouth is open, then it's not as bad. If they're panting quickly, then you need to do something like right now. You may have a dead bird in a day if you don't. But just keep an eye on them. I noticed for me, it's right around 90 degrees. 90 degrees is where they start to pant, and I feel like, okay, I need to come out and do something. My Apple Watch has the temperature on just the default face home screen, so I can check the temp really easily and know if I need to come out here. But we do water bottles every afternoon. I just have the water bottles that are just for the chickens. I have a shelf on my freezer that's just for the chickens. You don't need to give them a ton of frozen treats and frozen food, because then you start dealing with, you know, your chickens gaining weight and their bodies getting hotter because they're eating. So it's more about finding other ways, like I said, ventilation, cooling down their feet, making sure they're drinking enough water. But I do think that the mister is a good idea. I am an advocate for it, but like I said, you can't just turn it on for hours and then just leave and think that that's going to solve the problem. So be very careful, be very conscientious of where you're putting it, just so you don't damage your structures. You cannot let their food get wet. You can't let pine bedding get wet or PDZ get wet. It will ruin it. And just making sure that the point is that the ground gets wet so that your chickens can cool off. But see, now they're all chilling out and it feels nice. I've been watching them. Everybody's eating and doing chicken stuff. They were drinking water because I just put their ice in right before I did the video. Nobody is panting. I can go stand in there and it's not that bad. So I'm an advocate for a mister. If you have a specific one you like, or another hack or a trick or a suggestion, y'all are so amazing. Like this community that is here commenting on my YouTube channel. Like you guys always, you ask questions and you help each other and you give recommendations, and like it's just such a great community. So thank you guys so much. But that's just my 2 cents on keeping your chickens cool. Please go check out my other content if you haven't already in regards to helping to keep your chickens cool. It's a lot more serious than keeping your chickens warm in winter. I think everybody worries about, oh, I need to get a heater for my birds and I need to do this and it's only 60 degrees in the coop, and like they're totally fine in like literally like standing in snow. Like they will be okay because chickens can eat and puff up their feathers, and that's how they stay warm. It's a lot easier for them to stay warm. There's only so much you can do when they get too hot. So please, please, please be careful. Add the mister in if you've got a space where you can do it. I think it's a great idea. Just be careful, be aware, be mindful of how and when you're using it. But I'm Sarah, the Real Simple Mama. I hope this has helped you. Please let me know how else I can help if you've got questions, and I love learning from all of you guys. So thank you again.